The life are, the government funds that school at 1 to 15.
Question number 3, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. I've called Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by his statement that, quote, building a more productive economy, end quote, is a priority for his government, given that productivity has declined in 2 out of 3 years since he came to office, and the budget forecasts no improvement this year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, yes, building a more productive and competitive economy is one of the government's 4 priorities, and I'd point out to the member that the budget forecasts labour productivity growth of plus 0.6% in the year to June 2012, plus 2% in the year to 2013, plus 1.9% in the year to 2014, and plus 1.6% in the year to 2015. That represents a solid pickup in productivity.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Prime Minister agree that investment in education is crucial to building a more productive economy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, and that's why the government's investing $512 million extra over the next 4 years. But what I also believe very strongly is, having had a country that has employed 12.5% more teachers over the last decade at a time where the role growth has been only 2.5%, when the education outcomes have plateaued, it's time for this country to start focusing on teacher quality and the quality of teaching, not just the sheer number of teachers.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How does his decision to eliminate dedicated funding for technology teachers at intermediate level help to build a more productive economy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we don't, and if the member wants to check his BlackBerries before he comes to the House, he'll see press releases.
Dr. Russell Norman.
When he made the decision to change school staffing ratios as part of the budget, was he aware at that point of the effect on technology teaching at intermediate level?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, yes, and that's why the Ministry took the liberty of writing to all schools in New Zealand, to the 90% that gained or lost 1 FTE, that was pointed out to them, to the 10% that didn't. The Ministry not only wrote to them but made it clear to them we'd be working on the transition plans. We are working on those transition plans with a working group, but to allay any fears that may be whipped up by those who simply want to use this for political reasons, we've indicated that the maximum reduction could be 2 FTEs over a 3-year period. It's also worth pointing out that there are significant changes in roll numbers in many New Zealand schools, and in any one given year 5,000 teachers come or go from schools. There's a major change, so in that regard 2 FTEs over 3 years won't be a significant number.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he agree with John Key, then Leader of Opposition, who on the 28th of September 2008 said, quote, "Let me make this absolutely clear. Under National, the number of teachers will grow," end quote. If so, how does his budget cap on the number of teachers fit with this commitment?
The Right Honourable Prime
Mr.
Minister.
Speaker, it has grown in the 3.5 years that I've been Prime Minister, and I'm thrilled that the member reads everything that I say.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having looked at my BlackBerry on the way to Parliament, will he now admit that the changes they announced in the budget were wrong, and he now needs to claw back money in order to cover the technology teachers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no, they're not wrong. May not be convenient, but they're not wrong. The Ministry has a contingency, and we'll be making sure that both the professional development that we want is funded, but there will be changes to the ratios with limited impact on New Zealand schools.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How does his government's decision to discourage people from becoming teachers by requiring them to get postgraduate qualifications while simultaneously removing student allowances for postgraduate study, how does that decision help build a more productive economy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I reject the proposition from the member. We're not discouraging people to do postgraduate studies. What we are saying is we think the appropriate mechanism is a student loan at 0%, not an allowance. And actually, the economic implication of somebody getting a postgraduate degree, either master's or a PhD, is heavily supported by the fact that they will get significantly higher levels of income than others, and therefore funding that through a 0% student loan, where the government still writes off 40 cents in the dollar, in my book, is still quite generous.
Grant Robertson.
Given that last answer from the Prime Minister, can he tell the House what the difference is between the maximum amount that a student can borrow for living costs under the student loan each week and the actual student allowance that people can get? What's the difference between those two numbers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I'm advised it's very similar.
Dr Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Given that 2,700 teachers emigrated from New Zealand last year, how does driving away ambitious educators help build a more productive economy, or was the more productive economy he promised to build actually the Australian economy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I can't confirm that 2,700 teachers emigrated. They may or may not have. But the member will be absolutely thrilled and relieved to note we welcome people from all parts of the world, including Australia.
Point of order, Grant Robertson. Order. A point of order has been called. Order. Order. Grant Robertson.
Speaker, I seek leave of the House to table a document from StudyLink that outlines the various rates that can be obtained from the student loan weekly from StudyLink. Point of order? Or?
It is a point of order and there won't be interjection.
That says that the maximum amount of money that a student can borrow per week for living costs from the student loan scheme is $171.50 a week, and that the maximum amount that they can borrow from that they can get from student allowances is over $350.
Leavers sought to table that document. Order. Order. We won't have that rush of blood to the head. Order. Leavers sought to table that document. Is there any objection? Yes. There is objection. Supplementary question, the Honourable David Parker.
To the Prime Minister, why did he say 2 days before the budget, quotes, under a national government exports are rising, and in his budget speech last Thursday that, quotes, we have got the export sector starting to grow, end quotes, when Statistics New Zealand earlier that day reported a 17%, $800 million drop in goods exported from New Zealand in the year to April 2012?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Because the member's quoting a 1 month number and I'm looking over a 3 or 4 year period.
The Honourable David Parker.
How can he pretend our export story is a good one when imports are projected to increase at twice the rate of exports? And before he blames Christchurch, is he aware that of the 6.8% current account deficit projected for 2016, Treasury's advised that only 1% relates to Christchurch?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm advised that Christchurch is a major part of it.
Supplementary.
The Honourable David Parker.
Does he agree with commentator Fran O'Sullivan in the Herald that the major problem is that there is no clear economic growth agenda?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, can the Prime Minister reassure the intermediate schools, Ferguson Intermediate, Balmoral Intermediate, Papatoetoe Intermediate, Manurewa Intermediate, that those schools will not be losing between 3.5 and 7 teachers each as a result of the budget announcement?
Order. This is a very detailed question about teachers, which relates more to question 2 than question 3. There has been some discussion around, I accept there's been some discussion. If the Right Honourable Prime Minister has the information, he's certainly welcome to answer the question, but I think the House should understand if he doesn't have that particular information. The point of order, the Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, this was referring to what the Prime Minister said about reading our blackberries on the way to the chamber today, which was that the ratios at intermediate schools had actually changed.
Order. Point of order is... Order. The Leader of the House, above all others, should know that point of order should be heard in silence. I believe that comment did relate to the previous primary question, question number 2. And that's why I accept, I stand correct if I'm wrong there, but I'll invite the member, because too much time has gone by, to repeat his question, but I accept, though, that the Prime Minister may not have information necessary to answer that question, because it is a long way from this primary question. The Leader of the Point of Order, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister can't answer the question or doesn't have the information, then it should be left to him to tell us that, not to run tackle defending him before he gets to his feet.
Order. That's very simple then. If that's the way the House wants it, I'll simply rule the question out. But I'm going to give the member the chance to order. Because it's my opinion as Speaker, and I'm prepared to rule, the question does not relate sufficiently to the primary question. But I'm prepared to allow the member, and I'm not going to waste more time on it, I'm prepared to allow the member to repeat his question, but there does need to be some understanding the Prime Minister may not have the necessary information to answer it. The Leader of the Opposition.
Referring to the comment that the Prime Minister made about reading our blackberries on the way to the House, can he reassure the intermediate schools across New Zealand that they will not be losing up to 7 teachers in the technology area?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure them that over a 3-year period they will not lose more than a maximum of 2 FTEs.
Question number 4, Nikki Key.
Mr. Speaker, question to the Minister of